freezing. I'm knee-deep in slush, soaked to the bone. My hands are raw, fingers stiff, burning from the cold. River's barking cuts through the stillness like a scream, desperate, frantic. I slip on the icy shore, arms flailing, and catch myself against a jagged stump. My flashlight dances over the frozen lake. There, a shape just under the surface. Something thrashing, trapped beneath the ice. "Hold on," I whisper without thinking, voice catching in my throat. River lunges toward the edge, pawing at it wildly, teeth bared. I fall forward, barely keeping my balance, and begin smashing at the ice with a rock. It splinters. The shape beneath the surface goes still. For a horrifying second, I think I'm too late. But then, I get through. A burst of cold so intense it steals the air from my lungs. My arms plunge into black water. I grab fur, heavy, sodden. A dog, a golden retriever. I drag it out with all the strength I have left. Its body is limp, muzzle trembling, and in its jaws, something soft, bundled in soaked fabric. I think it's a doll at first. But it's not. It's not a doll. You won't believe what that dog brought out. 3 weeks before that night, I arrived at the cabin. It sat like a scar between the trees, weathered by wind and grief. My brother's place. I hadn't been here in years, not since we were kids. After the funeral, I couldn't stay in the city, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. So I packed up, left the noise behind, and brought River with me to figure things out. They said my brother drowned, slipped, hit his head, and fell into the lake. But I knew him. He was cautious, a rule follower. He didn't just slip. I told myself I came here to process, to grieve, maybe to fix the place up and sell it. But in truth, I think I was searching for answers even then. The lake loomed behind the cabin, wide and still and wrong. River didn't like it. Every night he sat at the window, ears pricked, staring out across the frozen expanse. Sometimes he growled, low and soft, the way dogs do when they're not sure what they're seeing. And then the dreams started. Always the same. A child crying, water dripping, cold seeping in under the doors, and somewhere, always bells. Soft, delicate, musical. The kind you'd hear on a baby's mobile. I'd wake drenched in sweat, heart pounding, and River pressed up against me protective. The cabin creaked at night. The lake whispered. And still, I told myself it was just grief, just the isolation, just memory playing tricks, until the day River vanished. It was morning, early. I let him out, like always, while I made coffee. 5 minutes, 10, 15, no bark, no return. I threw on boots and ran out into the trees, shouting for him, voice echoing off the skeletal birches. Then I heard it, barking, sharp, distressed, from the lake. I sprinted through the woods, breath coming in painful bursts. And there he was, at the edge of the frozen water, barking like his soul depended on it. That's when I saw the movement beneath the ice, the gold retriever, the cracking, the chaos, and the thing it clutched in its jaws. We got back to the cabin somehow. I barely remember how I carried both dogs. River was wild-eyed but unhurt. The other, just barely alive, skin taut over bones. Whimpering, jaw clenched, the bundle in its mouth fell to the floor. I thought it was a rag doll. I really did. But then I picked it up. It was a baby blanket, thick with mildew and lake silt, wrapped around something hard. My hands shook as I unfolded it. The smell hit me first. Decay and rot and something sweetly wrong. Inside, a tiny porcelain hand, not a doll's, a cast of a child's hand. And next to it, tucked into a hidden fold of the blanket, was a photo. I stared at it for a long time. Couldn't breathe. It was my brother, holding a baby I had never seen. I took the golden retriever to the vet, shaking the entire way. She was kind, confused, ran some tests, said the dog was underfed but microchipped. When she scanned the chip, her eyes changed. "This dog is registered to your brother." I must have gone pale. That can't be right. She looked at me, uneasy. "You need to see something." That night I sat on the floor of the cabin, the baby blanket in my lap, the photo beside me. River lay pressed against my side, stiff and alert. I stared at the image, trying to make sense of it. My brother, younger, holding a small child, a girl. She had his eyes. Why had he never told me? Why had I never known? The wind howled outside. Snow beat against the windows. I heard a noise, scratching, slow, deliberate. Just outside the door, River bolted upright, growling, ears pinned back. I opened the door, expecting maybe a raccoon, a coyote, but it wasn't. It was the golden retriever. Its fur was still wet, and its eyes were glowing. The rescued dog wouldn't leave. No matter how many times I nudged him out the door, coaxed him with food, or even physically walked him to the edge of the porch, he'd come back. Minutes later, silent, waiting, always with those glowing eyes. He never barked, barely moved, but he stared, into corners, at the base of the stairs, at the lake. Sometimes when I'd catch him in my periphery, I'd swear he was looking right through me. River hated him. Growled low and constant, muscles tense, tail stiff. But he never attacked, never lunged. It was like he knew something. I didn't. Like he was afraid to act. I started keeping the baby blanket and photo locked in a drawer, but that didn't help the dreams. They were getting worse. Now I didn't just hear a child crying. I saw her. She stood at the foot of my bed, soaked and shivering, hair matted to her face. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Behind her, the cabin walls dripped with water, warping and weeping. When I woke, the air smelled of mold and iron. Like the lake. I drove into town, needed answers, records, something, anything. The library was old and mostly abandoned, run by a woman who seemed startled to see me. I asked about drownings, missing children. She frowned, ran her fingers across faded catalog drawers. No records of a child drowning in the last decade, she said. Finally, but that lake, Mirror's End. It's taken more than its fair share over the years. People say it's cursed. Cursed how? She shrugged. Things go missing. People see things, hear things, and sometimes things come back. Before I could press further, my phone buzzed. The vet again. Are you sitting down? She asked. My stomach dropped. That dog, the one you pulled from the lake. I ran the microchip again just to be sure. It's definitely registered to your brother. 2 addresses ago, 5 years old. I could barely respond. He never had a dog. At least not one he told you about, she said quietly. Back at the cabin, I turned everything upside down. If my brother had secrets, I was going to find them. The attic was small and unfinished. Just insulation, old boxes, and a terrible smell. I went through everything, coughing from dust and rot. One box sat in the far corner, tucked behind rafters. Small, wooden, locked. I broke it open with a crowbar. Inside were baby shoes. Tiny, pink. A hospital bracelet, Eliza Jameson, and a photo, the same child. The same one from the other picture. Eyes wide, full of laughter. And then, a letter. Scrawled, frantic handwriting. My brother's. They told me she drowned. But I saw what pulled her. I saw its hands and its smile. I begged them to keep looking, but they said the lake was too deep, too cold. They never found her body. I hear her at night. She calls for me. My baby. I sat down. Hard my niece, he had a daughter, he never told me, never told anyone. Why? Because she disappeared. Because she was taken. I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know what to believe. That night I walked to the lake. The wind had a voice, long and low, almost like a moan. The surface of the ice shimmered faintly, reflecting stars that weren't there. And then I saw them, symbols etched into the trees near the shoreline, sharp geometric shapes, repeated again and again. Some upside down, some carved over themselves, over and over, like someone had tried to erase them and failed. I followed them, one by one, until the trail circled back to the cabin. River wouldn't go inside. He sat at the porch's edge and refused to move. Wouldn't even look at the door. The golden retriever had taken to scratching at the floor in the hallway. Always the same spot. A rhythmic, desperate digging. That night I finally gave in and pried up the boards. Beneath the floor was a hollow. A rusted lockbox sat inside. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside, a child's tooth. More drawings, crude, childlike scrawls. A lake. A dog. A smiling figure with black, empty eyes. And a mirror, small, handheld. Its silver back tarnished with age. I picked it up, cold to the touch. Too cold. My breath hitched, because when I looked into it, I didn't see myself. I saw the child. Eliza, floating, her hair drifted in the water like seaweed. Her eyes opened. Locked on mine, her mouth parted, and it was full of lake water and teeth. I woke gasping, sheet soaked, hair dripping. My skin icy and puckered like I'd been submerged for hours. Mud tracked the floor, my footprints, and others. Small. Bare. River stood frozen near the mirror, his body stiff, tail low. A low warning growl hummed in his throat as he stared into the glass. The golden retriever was gone. I didn't remember dreaming, but I knew I hadn't just sleepwalked. Something had been here, in the cabin, watching. I followed the muddy prints with trembling, steps trailing them back to the hallway. They led toward the floorboards I'd torn up. The lockbox was still there, but the drawings had shifted. I swear they had. The childlike scribbles now seemed more frantic. The eyes on the smiling figure weren't just empty, they were bleeding. And surrounding the lake in those sketches were dozens of the same jagged symbols I'd seen carved into the trees. It wasn't random. I brought them to town, asked the librarian if she recognized them. Her face blanched. "Those are warding sigils," she whispered. "Old ones, Appalachian folklore. Maybe older, they're meant to protect from watchers, from things that shouldn't walk our world." She pointed to one symbol, carved like an eye with teeth in its pupil. "That one. It's called the Watched One." I didn't ask more. I didn't need to. My brother had been trying to protect Eliza. He'd seen something, heard something. He wasn't crazy. I drove back, shaking. Rain hit the windshield like fingernails. Back home, I reread the letters I'd found. She said the girl with the bells wants to play. One read, "Voices come from under the water. Sometimes they call her name, sometimes they call mine." I heard the dog bark once and then scream. I tried to send it back, but it came back. The entries grew messier, more erratic. The last one simply read, "I don't know which. Child I buried." I dropped the paper, my chest tight, breath shallow. My skin crawled with the knowing that had no name. That night, River wouldn't settle. He paced, then nudged my leg insistently, whining low. He led me out, through the woods, past the etched trees, to a shack I didn't know existed, boards sagging, roof caved slightly in. Inside was rot and silence, and an altar. Half submerged in stagnant water, candles melted to stubs, bones arranged in a circle, photos pinned to the wall of Eliza. But not just her. Another child stood beside her in one image, face obscured, eyes scribbled out in thick black ink, so dark the paper had torn. I touched it, and the corner crumbled. I heard a chime, faint, familiar, the sound of bells. I left, heart pounding, air freezing around me. River stayed close, fur bristled. Back at the cabin, I couldn't rest. I stared at the mirror. The child came again, but this time she spoke. He said I could stay, if I brought her back. Her voice was soft and warped, like underwater static. Her lips didn't move. The sound pressed into my ears from inside. "Who said that?" I asked, voice shaking. Her head tilted. Her smile cracked open. "You know." Then she vanished. I dropped the mirror. It didn't break, just spun, face down. A whimper outside snapped me out of it. The golden retriever had returned, shaking, filthy, sopping wet, and in his mouth, a child's shoe. Matted, waterlogged, small. He limped forward, dropped it at my feet. Then from between his teeth fell something else. A music box. I picked it up with numb fingers, rusted but still intact. I twisted the crank slowly. A lullaby spilled out, soft, warped, and instantly familiar, Eliza's hum, from my dreams. River barked suddenly and dashed toward the fireplace. He clawed at the stones with manic urgency, dirt flying, teeth bared. I rushed over, ash and soot scattered everywhere, and then I saw it, bone, small. I dropped to my knees and helped dig with trembling hands. Buried beneath the ash was a tiny skeleton, fragile, curled. On itself like it had been hiding, or praying, clutched in its hand, was a bell. The mirror cracked, a clean line across the glass splitting the reflection of my face right down the middle. River yelped, scrambled backward, tail tucked, eyes wide. The room felt like it had been plunged underwater, dense, breathless, frigid. My skin prickled with goosebumps as my breath fogged in the air. I didn't wait. I grabbed the bell, the music box, and the dog, shivering and silent, his golden fur soaked and matted with soot. His eyes, God, his eyes looked almost relieved. We made our way to the lake. The path was treacherous, branches clawing at my clothes like fingers, trying to pull me back. The lake came into view, still frozen at the edges, but the center, it steamed. White vapor twisted from the surface like breath from something enormous and sleeping just beneath. The air was wrong, still but thrumming. I stepped to the edge. My boots sank slightly into the slush as I stared across the water, heart pounding. "Eliza," I whispered, my voice thin against the emptiness. "Come home." The fog parted. Something rose. First just a shimmer, then limbs. Hair. A dress that fluttered like it was underwater. A girl, maybe 7, maybe older, but wrong. Her skin was cracked like old porcelain, spider-webbed with fine fractures that glowed faintly. And her eyes, empty, hollow. "You brought my bell," she said. Her voice echoed both inside and outside my head. The sound pulled tears from my eyes. Before I knew why, the golden retriever whimpered, stepped forward. It looked up at her, its tail didn't wag. It bowed its head. She reached down, touched the top of his muzzle with pale, cracking fingers. He sighed, then collapsed into ash, just gone. I dropped to my knees, all of it. My brother's death, the attic, the letters, the mirror, the altar. It hit me like a wave. A sob cracked from my throat, one I hadn't felt since I got the call about his drowning. "Where is she?" I cried, fists in the snow. "Where's Eliza? Where's the real one?" The ghost girl tilted her head. She pointed to the music box, clutched in my hand. "I tried," she said, voice softer now, almost sad. "He wouldn't let her leave." River whined and nudged my arm. He pulled, urged me away from the lake. He led me to a tree, old, gnarled, half dead. Its roots were disturbed like something had been buried and the forest never quite healed over it. I dug with my bare hands. The earth was cold, but loose, like it wanted me to find it. Then I saw them. Small bones, fragile, curled together. A silver necklace with a tiny E-charm still hung around the neck vertebrae. Eliza, the real Eliza. My niece had never been missing. She'd been here, all along. Beneath the ice, roots, kept from peace, I sobbed. Deep, heaving sobs that emptied everything I'd bottled up for years. Grief for her, for my brother, for the childhood we lost and the secrets he died holding. I laid the music box beside her bones, and the bell. The air shifted. A breeze passed. Through the trees, gentle and warm. For the first time in weeks, the forest didn't feel haunted. It felt quiet. The fog on the lake evaporated like a breath let go. The ghost girl was gone, just mist, dissolving. I sat there until morning. I buried her properly. Eliza now rests beside her father. A stone marks her place, simple but true. Eliza June. Always watching the water, I stayed for a few more days. The lake began to thaw. The trees creaked softly, no longer whispering. River no longer stood guard by the window. He slept soundly, snoring gently at my feet. He knew. He felt it. I sealed the mirror under the floor again. Not as a warning, as a boundary. Some doors should stay shut. Eventually, I left the cabin, took River. Took only what mattered, but I couldn't help glancing back one last time before I turned onto the highway. That place still held echoes. They weren't all mine. Months passed. Spring came. The cabin sat quiet until the next family arrived. A couple. Smiling. Hopeful. With a daughter. She wandered the woods, as children do. She found the lake. She stood at the edge, tilting her head. The water was still. A soft tune drifted from the trees. A warped lullaby. She ran to her mother, eyes wide. "Mama," she said, clutching her mother's hand. "There's girl in the lake." "What girl, sweetheart?" "She says she lost her bell."